Hello, I hope you're well. This is another unscripted video. I've got some notes to my side, so if I'm looking off screen, it's not because I'm distracted, it's just to keep me on track. And this video about growing up is inspired by Lizzie at Creative Autistic, her most recent video, so go and check it out. It's really powerful, extremely interesting as always. And there was one part in particular that inspired me to make this video about growing up, and it was when Lizzie said that she was told that she's a mistake, and of course she is not a mistake. None of us are. But here's the but. I was born. We were all born. Yeah. Spoiler alert. I was born when my mum was 16. My mum was 16 when I was born, and I remember thinking, yeah, I'm clearly a mistake because, a 16-year-old wouldn't voluntarily decide to be pregnant, because they're still a child themselves. It's really weird, and they're not even an adult, and they've not discovered the world. They've not tried careers. They've not established themselves. Why would you have a family so soon? I remember that line of thinking when I was a child. And I haven't really changed that view that, I wasn't planned. I know I wasn't planned. My mum was 16, my dad was 18. They were, doing things that they shouldn't have been doing when they should have been focusing on school or college or whatever they were meant to be doing. Anyway, let's move on from that. So I arrived when they were very young, and for most of my life, I've just accepted that I was an unplanned mistake. It's a very pragmatic view on my existence. I am autistic. I like to look at things logically. But I now know that that's quite, an autistic take on things. I still think that, I know that I was unplanned. I still feel that I'm a mistake, but I think that view is wrapped up in a lot of trauma. And I think that's where Lizzie was coming from, although she can speak for herself very eloquently, much more eloquently than I can, certainly about her own videos and her own experiences. As I said, go and check out her video. So I think that view that I'm a mistake is grounded in the reality that my parents were extremely young and I was unplanned, but it's also wrapped up in a lot of trauma that I've experienced since. So yeah, I just want to talk about that view of being a mistake first of all. Look at my notes. Car accident. Car accident. Nothing really grisly that I'm about to share, I promise. But when I was about 8 or 9 years old, my friend Guy and I were cycling down a road like a few meters from where I lived, and he'd cycled down twice, a really steep road, and he said to me, "Why don't you go? It's your go now." And I thought, no, you show me how it's done one more time, and then I'll go. And he cycled down that very steep hill a third time, and he smashed into the side of someone's car. So he went down and bosh. And he had an enormous gash in his forehead, and he broke his arm. And I broke down in tears. I felt really guilty, and I still do. And I saw Guy a few years later when he was 17. I was 17. And he still had the scar right smack in the middle of his forehead. And that wouldn't have been there if I'd been brave enough to take my turn when I should have taken my turn. So what point am I trying to make with that? I think that was based on my autistic caution, a fear of the unknown. I'm not sure whether I would have ever cycled down that steep hill. I think I was just too scared, and I was delaying it. But I'm just sharing that experience from my childhood, because I think it's a glimpse into my autistic self. Another car, I've talked about this one before in another video, Back to the Future car. So I'm pretty sure it was a replica of the DeLorean from Back to the Future. I don't think the real DeLorean was shipped all the way to Basingstoke in southern England, for my benefit and other people's benefit. I say for my benefit, I was not that impressed. I loved the film, but I wasn't particularly impressed because I'm not that interested in cars. And I appreciate that, lots of people are, lots of autistic people are. It might well be their special interest. I'm just not interested in cars, mechanics, trains. I'm not bothered about trains unless I need one to get from A to B. Yeah, so I wasn't that impressed. Pretty bored. And then when I got back, I stood, leapt, got out of the car, that the very ordinary car that my mum and stepdad owned. Got out of the car, and the friend saw me get out of the car and said, "Oh, where have you been?" And I said, "Oh, I went to see the Back to the Future car." And he said, "Oh, did you enjoy it? Did you like it?" And I was like, "Nah, I wasn't that bothered, to be honest." And my mum overheard me, and I wanted the ground to swallow me up. And yeah, it was mortifying. And again, what's the point of me sharing that? Well, I think that was me being my honest, um, unbeknownst to me, autistic self. I was just saying what I thought, unfiltered, not realizing that maybe I should have just told a white lie and said, "Yeah, it was great. It was a brilliant weekend, the whole weekend." It wasn't. It was about an hour. So that commitment to honesty, and not being aware perhaps of other people's views in the moment. I mean, I was quite a young child, but I'm just sharing that because I think it's another glimpse into my autistic self, as I've already said. Um, Egg and spoon race. So I think shortly after that Back to the Future car experience, or shortly before it, anyway, around about the same time in my childhood, I took part in a egg and spoon race. I was going to say Back to the Future race, egg and spoon race, and I was acing this. I was doing really well, and about 10 meters from the finish line, my egg fell off my spoon. I didn't panic. I very casually, carefully, um, took the egg, put it back on the spoon, balanced it on the spoon, and ran the remaining 10 meters across the finish line. And one of the teachers adjudicating at the other end of the finish line disqualified me. She said that I cheated and that I pressed it down with my thumb. I did not. This was in 1990. I'm still cross about it. 35 years ago. I'm still cross. And I had what I've only just recently realized this. Well, in the past few months, um, I realized that my reaction to this disqualification 35 years ago was a meltdown, because I couldn't compute the injustice. Um, I couldn't I couldn't properly articulate that I was in the right. And of course there was a power dynamic, because I was a tiny 8-year-old, in my word against the word of, I don't know, a 40-year-old experienced teacher. I had no chance of making my point and winning the point and restoring my glory. So I had a meltdown, and I probably ought to look into meltdowns more and do another video specifically about meltdowns, although there are loads of brilliant videos about meltdowns already on YouTube. But just thinking out loud, I think a meltdown is a response to, it can be a response to a lack of logic, a lack of sense, and you just can't take it and you crumble. And that's what happened in 1990 at the egg and spoon race at my primary school. Another one related to that, just quickly, I'll share this one. Musical statues. I think it was the following year. And I was doing really well in the musical statues competition at the local football club. Had like a little pub attached to the football ground. And, you know, I stayed still. I got through to the next round, next round, next round, next round. And then, I don't know, I think the DJ or whoever pointed at me. I was towards the back. I was, strategic. I went to the back of the dance floor. Thought I'd have more chance of winning. Logic, you see. And they disqualified me. And I was as still as a statue, hence the point of the game. I did not move. I was not moving. And they said I moved. I didn't even blink. I didn't even breathe. There was no movement in my rib cage. I was still. I was determined to win that competition. They disqualified me, and I, like with the egg and spoon race, burst into tears. So, a meltdown. Again, I've only just realised this, the last few months. So another glimpse into me being autistic without realising. Another time when I had a meltdown was at a birthday party. I still haven't figured this one out, in my early 40s. Why did I have a meltdown? I didn't just cry. I actually, and I'm ashamed to say this, I think I destroyed a present or one of the one or two presents that belonged to the person whose birthday party it was. A guy called Tom. I'm sorry, Tom. I think I might have apologised to him when I bumped into him at sixth form when I was 16, 17 years old. So I don't know why I decided to just destroy gifts that belonged to him. I think it was just that there was so much going on and I just couldn't take it. But that's the only meltdown due to what I think was sensory overload that I remember happening in my childhood. And in my whole life. I don't really tend to have meltdowns these days. I have shutdowns. But, that birthday party experience, it does pop into my head now and again. I feel really guilty, but perhaps less guilty. No, definitely I feel less guilty now knowing that I'm autistic, because I know that meltdowns and shutdowns are part of being autistic, because it's due to being overwhelmed by our surroundings and not fully being in control. So I try to forgive myself a little bit more. Merit card. Now, when I was at school, I loved school. I loved achieving things. I loved learning. I loved knowledge. I love facts. I'm autistic. I think a lot of autistic people do like facts. They like knowing what's going on. They like learning for the sake of learning. And school, for me, I appreciate it's not for every person. Well, I know a lot of people can't stand school or couldn't stand school. They don't even like thinking about it. I loved school, secondary school, and I loved achieving. I loved the validation. I loved being good at things, because I wasn't very good at just having a conversation. I'm not very good at having a conversation now. I'm autistic. I overanalyze. I take longer to process. I struggle to hear in a noisy environment. I'm not interested in following trends. If I don't like a rule, then I'll question it. And all of those things make me less likable to the majority of humanity. I'm autistic. I make my mind up, and there are other, challenges in the neurotypical world, or the world that's not designed for me, that just make me stand out, perhaps in a way that sometimes I wouldn't like. And anyway, at school, I think me trying to achieve things was kind of a replacement for having lots of friends. Now is a little bit flippant. I did have friends, but like I said, I wasn't interested and never have been interested in being popular, and I never will be popular. But I do like achieving things to this day. I'm trying to get back into the running. I'm wearing this football shirt partly as an attempt to convince myself that I'm younger than I am. I'm fitter than I am. Confession. I like doing the YouTube videos. It's a sense of achievement to upload a video. It's things like that they motivate me. So anyway, when I was at school, in my bedroom, I had a wall of certificates, and I had my baseball cap collection as well. My favourite cap was a Tampa Bay Buccaneers cap, which I've told Orin about, and I'm telling you, it's my favourite cap. So I had that, and all my certificates, and some trophies as well. I played football, though I was awful at football. I got the most improved player trophy one year, 1991. But I think it was kind of like a consolation prize for me. But anyway, at school, I got these certificates through genuine, effort and ability. And one day I found one of my certificates on the table beneath the shrine to my own brilliance. Um, and I think it was a phone number or a note that, shall we say, one of my parents had written, clearly one of my parents. And I was wounded because this was a merit card that I had achieved. And yet now it was just a piece of notepaper. And I'll be honest, I'm still wounded by that. And you could say, well, get over it. It was a long, long time ago. It was a long time ago, about 30 years ago. But it still, it still bothers me because that was mine. I achieved that, and then it became almost worthless. That feeling of being wounded and that over analysis, I think, is related to me being autistic, but also this shrine to my own brilliance was also evidence of me being autistic, because I was more interested in achieving things than being super popular. And I'm not saying you can't have both. I'm just saying that my focus was on school, knowledge, achievement, and the certificate kind of brought me down a bit. The note on the certificate. Related to that, there was a technology prize at my school, my secondary school, this brand new technology prize. Now, as I've said in relation to the Back to the Future car, I'm not interested in mechanics, trains, cars. I'm not interested in engines. I mean, my dad can build anything. He loves motorbikes. My granddad built 3 boats and his own house in Shetland. And I'm just in awe of this. I remember being about 3 years old, going into my granddad's garage in Lerwick, and there was a boat that he was making or repairing that he made from scratch, and it was kind of elevated on some sort of platform. And I remember thinking for a moment, that is very impressive. And then scanning the garage and being incredibly bored and put off by all these tools and things that I didn't understand and didn't want to understand. For another autistic person, that would have been absolute heaven. For all I know, my granddad was autistic. I don't know. But what point am I making? Yes, technology. I've no interest in technology as such. But this prize was announced at school, and I thought, well, I don't have to actually make anything. I have to write the plan or draw the pictures for this imaginary contraption, invention. I can't remember what the theme was. I think that might have just been the theme. That it was as basic as that. Draw and write a plan for an invention. I can't remember what the invention was. I just remember spending 2 nights, doing extra homework. And then they announced the winner of the technology prize, and they announced it as White House. Now, there was a house system at my school, and I was in White House, named after Gilbert White, the author. The other ones were Kingsley, so Charles Kingsley, Austen, Jane Austen, and Dickens, Charles Dickens. So there's 4 houses, and I was in White House. And they said, White House have won the Technology Cup, and can Neil come and collect the trophy? And I went up into assembly of like 900, 1,000 kids there, looking incredibly bored, like me in a garage. And I collected the trophy, said, yay, you got a trophy, shook the teacher's hand, and then sat back down. And they said there'd be an individual prize, and I'm still waiting for it. And this was in 1995, 30 years ago, and I'm still bothered that my individual prize has not arrived. I still haven't got it. I'm even tempted, and this is no joke, I'm even tempted to go back to my school and inquire about this prize that was promised to the winner 30 years ago. So there's 2 things here. There's one, me doing that technology project, and one, the disappointment that I still harbour deep inside at not receiving that prize that I'm fully entitled to. I did that technology project, spent ages, hours doing extra homework because I enjoyed it. I enjoyed the process, the creativity, and I enjoyed the thought of being um, awarded for that effort. And I was, in a way. Um, I got the moment of glory with the trophy. Um, but then the still being wounded at the lack of individual prize um, is, I think, related to me being autistic as well. So, yeah, another episode of me being an autistic person growing up and not realizing that I'm autistic. Um, just another couple of instances of, when I grew up, when I was growing up. I played football with my friend Lee, and he and I, well, we were just kicking the ball against a crossbar in a field near where we lived, on a football pitch. And I had this money from somewhere. I think I might have been given it at Christmas or for my birthday. I can't remember, but I remember just having a few pound coins. And I said to Lee, if you hit the crossbar a certain amount of times, then I'll give you this money. And he did, because he's much better at football than me. I was, and probably still is. And I just remember feeling compelled to give him this money. And I didn't think it was particularly odd at the time. I thought I was just being very generous. Um, but now knowing that I'm autistic, I do wonder whether that's me giving this money away and relating it to this very specific, bespoke sporting test, trying to hit the crossbar. It I think it relates to me being autistic. Again, it was an achievement for him, and it was a structured activity. It was achievement, and I just wanted to be generous. And now I realize that that was, well, I think it was related to me being autistic. I remember playing football on my street, and I remember giving people scores out of 10 for, I don't know, the penalties that they were taking. And I remember saying, oh, I think that was a 7 out of 10. And then one guy, older than me, said, ooh, what are you saying that for, mathematician? He wouldn't have said mathematician, that's too fancy a word, I think. Boffin, or, nerd. So what are you doing that for? Playing football, we're not doing maths. And all I said was, I think that's a 7 out of 10. Again, relate it to me being autistic, but not realizing at the time. And finally, again, come back to school. No detentions. So I had no detentions at school. Sort of wore it as a badge of honor. Still do, to be fair. No detentions. I went out of my way to stay out of trouble. And I kind of gave myself an allowance of being told off once a year. And even that was terrible, because it destroyed the day, if not the week, if not the month. And I think I stuck to that average of being told off once a school year. So 5 years at secondary school, 5 tellings off. One massive telling off, which really destroyed me, because I was in absolute floods of tears. I can't remember what I did. Myself and chap called Scott, we were given a proper dressing down. It was horrible. That was probably the worst. That might have even made me say to myself, right, once a year, if that. And that was the worst telling off, and that was in year 7. So I was 11 or 12 years old. But the point I'm trying to make with the no detentions and the cap on how many times I was told off, is that, I just wanted to go to school, achieve as much as possible, and have a quiet life. And detentions were really, I hated it when other people got detentions. I hated when people misbehaved. I just didn't like the disruption. I just was mystified that people would cause trouble at school. I was like, this is a place to learn. People talking all the time when teachers trying to talk, and thinking out loud, I was probably irritated by that because I was struggling to hear what the teacher was saying, um, amongst all the other chit chat that was going on. So yeah, detentions. Didn't like it when other people got detentions. Didn't like people causing trouble, but particularly I didn't like myself being told off, and I never got a detention because I was determined to keep the peace and go to school and achieve as much as possible. Not to make out that I'm the best person in the world. It was never about that. It was just to fulfill my own potential. I didn't, clarify it as such when I was a kid. I wasn't that pretentious. I just made me happy to do well. Um, and there are probably deep psychological reasons for that I've not fully explored. Maybe we'll figure it all out in a few years' time. Maybe never. But being autistic, and finding out late in life that I'm autistic, like most, if not all, autistic people, has enabled me to reassess certain episodes, and make sense of them through my autistic lens. I'm just be a bit easier on myself, and hopefully sharing my experiences from my childhood and looking at them through an autistic lens. Hopefully that is relatable to you. I know, dare I say, brings you some sort of peace. I don't know, but if nothing else, I hope it was interesting to hear me rattle on about episodes from my childhood. As always, if you have any suggestions for future videos, please do let me know. Any thoughts about this one, please let me know. And look forward to doing the next video. In the meantime, take care.